I was born in Woodley. Woodley, I like to describe it as a pretend estate. Why pretend? It's a city council estate, you know. On the right is Kibera, on the left is Lavington, Kilimani. But we're smack in the middle with compound and, you know, gates and, Woodley. Woodley, you can go on and on. It's the woods, you know, it has the diction, the pizzazz, and of course, Tees. Those of yesteryear must have connected with Tees. Tees was a 24-hour pub. And when we were growing up, I think the only two in Kenya. And Tees was one of them. So everybody who was anybody was in Tees. And so if you're in Woodley, Tees, you kind of scored a lot of today Bogan points. Fast forward, in Woodley, we had schools. We had, around us, that surrounded us, we had Kilimani Primary, we had Lavington, Nairobi Primary, and St. Mary's. So my father, William, man full of chivalry, decides to take me and my siblings to Lavington and St. George's and Kilimani. So in Lavington Primary, we get all these guys. There's the captains of industry. We didn't know them. We're just little kids with gray shorts going through our business. We didn't even know. We did not know tribe. We don't know anything. We just knew things. So we go through Lavington like in a haze, and voila, with Standard 7. You know, we went through the old system where we had Standard 7. And we did an exam called CPE. So CPE comes. Well, I was not the sharpest guy in the I was there, you know. And so we do CPE, and I don't do too badly, but, you know, I'm there. So I come out from CPE, then I got good grades, 31 points, which was not too bad. So I come and tell my father, William, Dad, could you get me to Patch? So Dad says, Patch is Nairobi School, for those who don't know. So, could you get me to Patch? Dad says, I see a twinkle in his eye. He says, sure. And I said, first we've connected with this man, which was rare, you know. My father was not one to get very close to. He used to use the cane and other things liberally, so for no reason. So we used to keep our distance between me. But this was now a connection, father and son. It was pivotal. I had passed exam. I was going to Patch, and there was a twinkle in Muze's eye. Off we went. So 2 days later, he says, son, I managed to get you because, there's a bit of, I cannot use the word, but there was a bit of coercion and, some things. So off we are to Patch. And we enter the car. It's a Renault. I'll never forget it. Renault. So we enter the Renault. And off we go. So as we're driving, traditional shopping. So as we're driving, I realized we're passing Nairobi School. So I kind of look at my father. I'm like, Patch? So I gathered some courage. I said, Dad, that is Patch. He said, I thought you meant catch. So I find myself in Kakamega High School. Now you need to picture this. This boy from Lavington, and Lavington was Lavington. I know a few of you are in the audience here, and Lavington had all this, the diction. What taught English by Englishmen, were polite. We had hot lunch. We played nice games, We still had first body, second body, but still, that was a bit far-fetched. So I'm in Kakamega. I enter Kakamega. Kakamega is a beautiful campus. Beautiful campus. You enter. There's a lot of greenery. It sits on 100 acres. You enter. Now, my mzee, being the typical Luya he is, son, you're a young man, and he drops this big metal suitcase, drops it out there. He says, well, I'm sure you'll find your way. And the guy drives away. So as I see this car driving away, I'll never forget the registration, KRS 002. Roughly translated, Kissa's Reverend Son number 2. And he was a Reverend Son, by the way. I don't know how he got that number plate. So I realized, man, I've got to survive. So survival instinct kicks in. We have to I go and then, there's orientation, and I saw a fellow in the corner there. And I figured, that guy, I think, So I sauntered to him. He had well-developed facial hair and some zits to boot. So I figured this guy must either be from 6 or something, So I go to him and say, excuse me, in my, Lavington English, I say, excuse me, sir, I'm in a spot of bother. Could you show me where Amiani dormitory is? He tells me, oh, I'm also going, sir. So I'm like, really? There was a bit of disconnect. His name was Elikana. So Elikana and I developed this, like 2 peas in a pod. So he takes me to his dormitory, and, courtesy of my father and mother, I had all these beverages come. So Elikana became like the football player, American football. So he clears the way for you to pass. I was never bullied. Elikana never lacked bread. We had a perfect, we were okay. We were okay. We had this thing. I breezed through Kakamega High School. I owned it. I was the owner of Kakamega High School. I did stuff there. The headmaster and I had obviously running battles because one time he just beat me up and asked him, Mr. I can't mention his name. So, Mr. K, why are you beating me? He said, you're either going to do something or you've done something. I said, okay. We had an agreement with him. He meets me, I jump through the window. We never met again. We never met. So I pass and, I pass through, I go through high school, pass and find myself in the University of Nairobi. Pass through again, then I start life. Now, if you're a Woodleyan, Woodley had its own, vibe. So you don't stray too far from Woodley. So I strayed. Now when I was an adult, doing my thing, I strayed to a place called DC. So I'm in DC one day, seated on my balcony, having a hot chocolate. These are Lavington, Woodley traits. You have hot chocolate, you have good things. So I'm seated having my hot chocolate, and I get a call, my boy. And in Woodley, you never leave your guys standing. Hey, Alex, yes. Could you give me a tour from Naivasha? I said, oh, sure. Now, I was at the balcony and I was staring down. And there's a car there, a pickup truck, that reminds me of me. It's called Old Faithful. It was Japanese, those... we can call it reconditioned, thanks to people who allowed second-hand vehicles with new number plates. So I had Old Faithful was there. It was a dated pickup, flatbed pickup right there. And so I'm taking my chocolate and I'm seeing Old Faithful. I'm saying, will you make it to Naivasha? Because in Woodley, you never let your person in the battlefield. You always stood by them. I dash 2 steps down, I go, and Old Faithful just simply never, ever started. I don't know why. If you change the battery, the starter goes off. If you change the starter, the battery goes off. So we agreed, let's just be pushing every morning. So, and I always had this prayer every morning, please start, please start, please start. And it never started. Never. So 2 days earlier, I'd met a girl. There's always, in Woodley, you always had a guy. There's always a guy. I met a girl. So I meet, man, I figured this guy had wanted me to tow him to Naivasha. So I thought, hey, this could be a perfect elevator pitch. Woodley because, you kind of had to fake it until you make it. Because with the girls, nowadays I hear you guys have got sponsors. Ours was pure lyrics. You had to remember songs from songwriters and sing to these girls and hope they listen. So I realized that I have 1 hour of pure lyrics. And asked her, press the buzzer. She lived in decent apartments, not like my place. So she pressed, hello, yes. Do you have 2 hours? She said, yes. I said, okay. Then could you take me to Naivasha? I said, Naivasha? I don't even know your middle name. I said, okay, but, I could tell you that. That's anyway, tall and short of it, she comes out. And so she comes out with her keys, and she presses her car, and I'm like, no, we're not going with that. I would have loved to go in that car. But no, let's go. So we enter Old Faithful. How do we enter Old Faithful? As she's coming up the stairs, I rush to the passenger side and open the door. And she looks at me and says, what chivalry? And I take it all in. She doesn't know that door doesn't open. You have to nudge it. So I open it, she enters, secure it. Off we go to Naivasha to tow my friend. In Naivasha, we meet my friend, we adjust the tow, and we put in, and my friend welcomes us, Woodley again. Hey, high five, hey, latte, a lot of chivalry. The girl kind of forgets she's an Old Faithful. And we are towing a Volvo. That was the irony of it all. Old Faithful was towing a Volvo. Now I went there, and I sat up prayerful. I sat, and I told her, let's pray. So the guy looks at me, hey, this man has chivalry and is prayerful. I had scored very many points there and then. So she didn't know I was praying that there's a hill, an unforgiving hill called Kinungi. Oh. Kinungi was not a hill that you take lightly. Those of you who are familiar with the Nairobi, Naivasha stretch, there's an unforgiving hill called Kinungi doesn't care. So I was saying a prayer. I was saying, will Old Faithful deliver? Immediately we get onto the road, the highway, we go into the climbing lane. And we start climbing. Now, Old Faithful is at its best. There's a girl over here. There's a Volvo being towed. I mean, how much better can you get? The radio was off, because if you put on the radio, the car goes off. There are two, you have to kind of, balance. I figured, man, this is do or die. As I was driving up Kinungi, those Mama Mboga, those old cabbage trucks, full of smoke and smoke. But those guys, you just see it puffing. All the diesel smoke comes to you. And I was looking at the girl, and I was looking. She thought I was admiring her, but I was looking at this door. If this door opens, I'm in a problem, because I was not sure that I secured it. There's another small thing you put inside. It didn't quite come in with the car, but you can put it inside, and it's secured. And I couldn't quite do it out of shame, so I left it. So we're going. Guys are overtaking, the guys are cursing you. As look at the temperature gauge, those of you who are familiar with Old Faith, you will know, if the temperature gauge passes half, you're sunk. You have to go on. Old Faithful delivered. It was quarter, I think it knew I was in a pitch of my life. So I'm regaling this girl with stories, and you have to keep your composure. Those of us who, had the honor of, we used to call it tuning. Those of us who would tune girls, you had to be very calm. You could go to Wimpy and you have 200 shillings, and you want to buy for a girl a meal, and you don't have a meal yourself. You tell her, no, I've eaten, please have. And somehow, they're called lyrics. So you somehow go through. So I was here, stiff. And when I threw my eye, the gaze, the lady had relaxed. The face had relaxed. Even when somebody overtook, I had her saying, what's wrong with this man overtaking us? I said, tall and short, Old Faithful delivers. We drop the girl home. I drop the car to the car yard and drop the girl home. And 2 days later, or 3 days later, she comes to my flat, because she could not believe a place that I had described. Now, you need to get this description right, and correct me if I'm wrong. Off Ngong Road. In the environs of Junction Shopping Mall, behind Riara Road. That's where my apartment is. So I tell her, take the right fork at the roundabout. So you just take the right fork, then the immediate left, 50 meters to your right, you'll see a Nandi flame tree. That's where the apartment is. So she comes up, and she said, why didn't you just tell me it was Dagoretti Corner? I figured, Then I wondered where would the lyrics come in? So she was already in the house. And in the house, she had come for lunch. And when you come for lunch, in Woodley, you're taught about a guy. In Kakamega High School, I had Elikana. In Woodley, there's always a guy. Now in DC, I'd also figured out my way around. There was Mama Susan. She would make a lovely chicken. Then there was that girl of Georgian, wet fry. Then there was Oliech. She had, what was that thing? Fish. So we're okay. I kind of I got the lunch sorted. She's now my wife, so she's in the audience. So now, what lesson am I saying? There's one time I was engaged in some very, campus had this thing, we were in CCU, or, the mess, whatever you call it. And I was engaged in some very ferocious argument with this guy, and it was, quoting. And the guy looked at me and said, which school did you go to? I said, Saints. And you? He said, Saints. What do you mean, Saints? Saints, yeah, it's in Saints. I never saw you. He said, no, I never saw you too. So we are now almost at the level of, fist cuffs and, hey, who's the headmaster? I said, Mr. Aluku, and you? He says, Father so-and-so. So I say, okay, but I was in St. Peter's, Mumias. So who was it to doubt me? He was in the famous St. Mary's, but we were both in Saints. My lesson is, stick to your lane. Stick to your lane. At Kinungi, when you're climbing up that hill, the V8 will pass, the Land Rover will pass, even an occasional, nowadays you have Porsche, they'll pass and they look at you and sneer. But you are towing that Volvo. No one knows your story. You just keep going, you keep going. Because eventually, it comes together. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.